So,
long days?
So all done. Went quite well overall. The first part of the meeting was about the future of Europe and institutional reform, and there's a very strong consensus that Ireland should have 2 more MEPs, and that each country will retain its commissioner for the next commission at least through to 2024. So it's almost in the bag that Ireland will have 2 more MEPs and will continue to have its own commissioner at least until 2024. The second part of the meeting was relating to the budget, and this is the new EU budget, which isn't going to actually start until 2021. So I don't think realistically we're going to conclude the budget talks this year. They'll certainly run into the first quarter of next year. But a lot of countries with a very similar view of Ireland, to Ireland, particularly in Central Eastern Europe, around the Mediterranean, that we would be willing to make modest additional contributions, provided really important programmes like the CAP, Erasmus, cohesion funds, structural funds, regional development are protected.
Given that you're getting these extra 2 seats in the European Parliament, have you given any thought to perhaps allowing Irish citizens who will be living in Northern Ireland to vote in the European Parliament elections and have representation by being able to access those additional MEPs?
Well, we're giving general thought, and it's something that I'm very much in favour of giving Irish citizens, no matter where they live in the world, the opportunity to vote in presidential elections, and I'd anticipate us having a referendum on that in the next couple of months, either this autumn or in the new year. And the whole idea around that is to make the presidency a presidency for the whole Irish nation. I think the difficulty with having Irish citizens in Northern Ireland voting in European elections is, the obvious fact that that they'd be voting for a parliament that wouldn't have any jurisdiction over those territories, and that just wouldn't make sense.
But they are still EU citizens, European citizens, by virtue of their Irish citizenship, and this is one of the conundrums that they face up there, losing that representation.
Yeah, that's right, and different countries do different things. Some countries allow citizens who live overseas to vote in national and European elections, and others don't. The general view that we've taken in Ireland is that given the huge number of people around the world who could claim Irish citizenship, that could distort our democracy. Essentially, we'd have people electing parliaments that set our taxes and set our laws, and yet they wouldn't be bound by those laws or have to pay those taxes. And that really doesn't make sense from a democratic point of view. What would make sense, I think, is allowing Irish citizens all over the world to vote in presidential elections, because the president obviously doesn't make laws and doesn't set taxes. And I think as well, having representation in the Seanad would be valid as well.
Did you discuss Brexit issues with your colleagues on the margins?
Yeah, always. I don't think it's possible to have a single meeting with another head of government, head of state in Europe without discussing Brexit. A meeting like this is generally just kind of comparing notes, and obviously I spoke with Prime Minister May last week. Prime Minister of Netherlands did too, and just kind of comparing notes in terms of what we heard.
I just came from President Tusk's press conference, and there does appear to be a sense that the Union is heading for a sort of showdown with the British in the coming weeks. Is that your sense of it?
I think we're going to have to see. Prime Minister May is going to make a speech next week. I hope that we'll hear a lot more detail about how the United Kingdom sees its new relationship with the European Union, which of course will impact enormously on Ireland and on Northern Ireland. We'd like to see a very close relationship between the UK and the EU, one that isn't very different to what we have now. But I don't think that the United Kingdom has yet squared this circle. You're hearing this idea that there would be three baskets, if you like, and one basket would be very closely aligned to the EU. Another would be in between, and a third would be divergence. But that's not a significant move away from having your cake and eating it, and that just isn't possible. So sooner or later, I think that fundamental issue will have to be confronted, and I think it would be better done sooner at this stage.
Is that different baskets approach not the very definition of cherry picking that the EU has always warned about?
Which is why it's not possible.
Okay.
Thanks, teacher.
Was there any discussion on the suggestion of Angela Merkel to connect the EU budget to efforts making on migration?
What, sorry?
Was there any discussion on Angela Merkel's suggestion to connect the EU budget to efforts made in migration?
Well, yes. Part of the discussion this afternoon was about what new things the European Union can do in its new budget, and I think everyone agrees that the European Union can do more around migration, both in terms of action in Africa, for example, helping Africa to become more democratic, to become more prosperous, thus reducing the number of people who feel the need to move to Europe, and then also much more cooperation when it comes to integrating migrants who have arrived in Europe, and then also border security. So I'd anticipate that the new EU budget, whenever we agree it, will include a budget for migration issues.
All right, thank you.